So the 49ers are, I mean, they don't come out this way in the projections because the projections don't have a like, hey, rookie quarterbacks are unpredictable and therefore make the swings wider variable. But like, let's be honest, like the San Francisco 49ers probably have the widest range of possibilities of any team this year because we just have no idea what we're going to get out of Trey Lance. And so their projection, we have their projection a little bit above average. We have them as a pretty average team overall with a little bit of an easy schedule, but mostly it's just like their defense comes out a little above average. I actually think their defense is probably going to be a little better than this, although they are already struggling with injuries at cornerback. Javarius Ward is out for 2 weeks. So, like, the injuries are already coming at their weakest position. And Jason Verrett, like, Lord knows if he'll ever play again.
No.
Poor guy.
The offense is a who knows. The offense is like, who knows? Who knows?
I almost went in the opposite direction with this team in terms of Trey Lance will be somewhere between below Garoppolo and above Garoppolo. And the offense is going to be designed for the running game and the yak game. And so it's going to come in at a certain level. And the defense is going to be pretty good. And it kind of, unless we see Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think we're going to see it, or unless we see a disaster, I don't think we're going to see that. We're going to see 9-8 or 10-7. And, you know, I'm kind of slotted in there with the 49ers.
So you actually don't think there's that wide a variety because you're not expecting the really, really good and you're not expecting the really, really bad.
Yeah, no, and Carl, do you hear more out of the Niners camp? It seems like very meh about Lance. Like he's not doing great, but nobody's worried. That's kind of the.
Yeah, I mean, heading into like mini camp OTAs, George Kittle was a big fan of how Lance was performing. They're saying nice things about his talent. When Shanahan has talked publicly about Lance, it's not like he's going over the top to say he's the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. But I wouldn't put it past them if they're trying to like hold things or hide things a little bit just because it's going to be different looking. Obviously, we got a little bit of a preview of what it would look like last year, particularly down the stretch against the Texans. But with an extra offseason in the building, I wouldn't be surprised if the offense is a little more expansive over what Lance was already doing in year one, which realistically, I mean, it's not like he was just a rookie. He was coming out of the FCS after not playing except for one game the year before, coming into a locker room filled with veteran players that were trying to make a big playoff run. It's very, very unlikely that he's worse than he was last year. And against the Texans, he showed flashes of being a pretty solid quarterback.
A lot of what I saw also from him is like the 120-mile-an-hour fastball that would glance off the hand. And like you talk about like a correctable flaw. It's like you can teach somebody to take a little off the fastball and to settle, and the game slows down and they settle down. It'd be different if it wasn't getting there in time. So there were a lot of things I thought were positives for him. It's just a matter of where his ceiling might be for his career is one place. It's where his ceiling is for 2022. I can't imagine that we're going to be talking about him any more than, oh, he's took the step and he's like one of the 15 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
I will also point out that there are other issues on the San Francisco offense. Their offensive line, they're replacing Alex Mack with a guy who was a street free agent 3 years ago, Jake Brendel. Yes. They have a 4th-round rookie named Spencer Burford penciled in at right guard right now. Aaron Banks was a rookie last year and I don't think played, and now he's the left guard, but he was a second-round pick. So you do expect good things out of him. But there are questions about the offensive line. And of course, I mean, the good thing about Lance is if Lance feels a lot of pressure, he should be the kind of quarterback who can perform under pressure because he can get out of the pocket and he can make things happen and he can scramble.
In the running game, you can use him as the extra blocker by creating option things and, you know, having him keep the backside. There's a lot of things you can do with that.
Yeah, they right guard, the current R-Lads depth chart lists 3 rookie right guards.
Right.
Burford, and then Sutherland, who's a college free agent, and then Nick Zakelj, who is a 6th-round pick. Turning it to the defense, right, there I think there is a little bit of a question about edge rusher opposite Nick Bosa, but they do have Ebukam, and they do have Charles Omenihu, who they got from Houston halfway through last year, and the 2nd-round rookie Drake Jackson. So, you know, between those 3 guys, I think you have a good non-Bosa rotation. They have great off-ball linebackers. Like, we can argue about whether it was analytically smart for them to sign Fred Warner to such a great contract, but he is a good player. And Dre Greenlaw back from injury, and then the guy who I think is mispronouncing his own name, Aziz al-Shaair, and the questions are in the secondary, right? Because, like I said, Ward is injured, and they think they're counting on Verrett, which dream on. And strong safety right now is supposed to be a guy who was a fifth-round rookie last year, although he is on our prospects list. But Talanoa Hufanga is the starting strong safety next to Jimmy Ward. So the secondary is really where the question marks come in about the San Francisco defense.
Yeah, I mean, Bosa and Armstead cover up a lot of problems up front, and they create
getting
better
Kinlaw back
matchups.
is very nice.
Yeah, for sure. They create better matchups for everybody else. So, like the Chris Kasurek school of defensive line skill can continue to flourish and churn out players that like were more or less journeymen, like whether that's Kerry Hyder a couple of years ago where he kind of bounced around and got a good contract and now he's back. I believe they picked up Kamoko Toure, if I'm not mistaken.
They go deep, actually. I didn't realize, looking at their roster right now, that they go kind of deep at that non-Bosa edge rusher.
They got a lot of dudes.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are reasonable guys that are not like street rookies.
Yeah, so they can cycle those guys through, and then Bosa will attract all the attention, so they get favorable matchups and can clean up for sacks pretty effectively.
Right, and they can rotate guys. I don't know which Drake Jackson this is because during the course of his college career, he went from a small speed edge rusher to a power rusher. I think it's more of the power rusher, but having him in there, I think he's an intriguing prospect. He's going to be really good in that rotation. And like you said, you got Kinlaw and you got Armstead up the middle. That takes pressure off the second edge guy, okay? Because that pocket is going to be collapsing from within, and there'll be spillover sacks and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's like regression to past years built into the projection, but I do think that San Francisco's defense is going to be better than 14th, even with the problems in the secondary, because their front seven is just really solid. And I think they'll be hard to run on, too.
Yeah, they play like their hair's on fire, and they cause a lot of havoc along the way. So
they're going to be hard to run on. They're going to run the ball probably well if they can figure out the interior offensive line. They're going to get yak. It's again, so you put all this stuff together. It's like, well, that gets you to your wild card conversation, especially in the NFC. Now get us up there in the Rams-Packers tier, and like you have to say
that would take Lance having the Patrick Mahomes year.
Yeah, and it's like I can't get there because there's not enough evidence to support that, and so here we are in the wild card world. Over 11 wins at plus 170, plus 175.
That is not high enough for me.
Fair enough. Sounds like that's not high enough for you either, right, Carl?
Nope.
Okay. So. Me either, and I'm not enough of a disbeliever, but let's see here what you guys think. 49ers under 9 at plus 175.
Well, our simulation would actually suggest that that's a good value. Because, I mean, even if you sort of unconservativize our mean wins and make it more like a 9.1 or a 9.2, that still suggests that there's an almost 50% chance of them going under that. And that would suggest plus 175 is a good bet. And I know that ESPN's projections have them even lower than our projections because they're even more disbelieving of Lance than we are. Their feeling is when you have a rookie who has no, I mean, now he's not a rookie, but when you have a quarterback with no track record, you generally fade them.
Yeah. If it was 9.5, I think I'd jump. I want 9 and 8. I don't want the push at 9. Although I guess that gives you a little bit of insulation.
I think at plus 175, I actually think that that's good value.
Okay. I'm not touching it, but Aaron likes it. Carl, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to go under there, just given that you have the plus 175. That's not even saying it's 50-50, that it has to happen for it to be good value. So I'm with it.
Here's some individual bets. Debo, over 10.5 regular season rushing and receiving touchdowns. Over 10.5 touchdowns for Debo Samuel, but at just plus 115.
Oh, that means, that's basically a 50-50 right there. A little bit more.
Yeah.
He had 14 touchdowns last year.
8 on the ground. And
but only
6 of those 8 were and 6 of those 8 rushing touchdowns were for 10 yards out or more.
Yeah.
Now a lot of Debo's run plays end up with him getting the ball outside where it's easier to have like big explosive runs than if you're grinding between the tackles. And we know he doesn't really want to do that because he doesn't want to shorten his career because of injury or anything like that. So while he may be the kind of player with the kind of usage that would lead him to overperforming his expected touchdowns, I wouldn't say that you want to bank on getting 6 10+ yard rushing touchdowns from a wide receiver again.
Brian Knowles is not on the over 10.5 touchdowns because he is buying the Brandon Ayuk breakout year, quote, like a moron.
I'm bullish on Ayuk. You know who else is getting a lot of buzz out of that camp? Trey Sermon. So there's again, when they're doing a running back rotation at the goal line, and if you're wondering, hey, maybe we'll get 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns short from Debo. Probably not. They're going to get somebody in there. It could be Sermon. I would want plus 150 or something like that to like that Debo bet. It's nothing like those Jamar Chase bets yesterday, which I wanted to jump all over. Last one. 49ers to be the NFC number 1 seed, but at plus 1,100.
Depends on how much we're putting on it, right? I mean, like, I wouldn't throw much on it, but like, if you're betting on the bull case with Lance, the Buccaneers have a lot of offensive line injuries. So while they should be a clear favorite in that division, I wouldn't be shocked if they underperform a little bit, at least initially, given the uncertainty there. The Rams have, for whatever reason, struggled with the 49ers. It's the whole rock, paper, scissors thing with the old Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers trio. So maybe that hurts. I mean, you got Green Bay. Maybe they take a step back without Devontae Adams. Like, you can talk yourself into it. And at those odds, I don't mind.
Plus 1,100 means that you think it's going to happen 1 out of every 12 times. I'm looking up how often they actually won the number 1 seed in our season simulation.
Okay, that's good. Now, of course, we have them at Super Bowl champs 2.7, which is not 1 out of 12. That's 1 out of.
They won the number 1 seed 5.8% of the time.
That's 1 out of 20.
They would need to win it 8.3% of the time to make that bet a good value.
So it doesn't look good, but if you are bullish on the Trey Lance experience and you're looking for some fun with a $10 or a 200 check Beardo bet, you could do worse than taking that one, because you're right. You can make that argument. If you talk about the other contenders all have their issues, you can see a couple of Seahawks wins put right in place, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Seth Dunbar is surprised we have them 14th on defense. Like I said, I would expect their defense is going to be a little better, but it has to do with the question marks in the secondary and a little bit of regression to past years' expectation. But I would expect their defense to be a little bit better than this. I think we have them too low on defense. I do.